Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at and whenever you're watching this. We're going to be jumping back into some more SCP here with the Exploring series, as we're going to be checking out the Manna Charitable Foundation, one of the I guess other factions, organizations in the SCP universe. This was requested for me to take out by one of the community members here, so we're going to check it out. Links will be down below in the description to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to the Exploring series channel. Please do me a favor, click those links. If you enjoyed this video as we go through it, go over there and give it a like. And if you enjoy the Exploring series content and are not already subbed to them, please do me a favor, go show them some love, hit that sub button. Definitely deserves it. It makes a lot of great content for the SCP universe as well as others. So check out his stuff. If you like 40k, I think he's got some Lord of the Rings content on there, etc. Check out his stuff. If you'd like to join us when we do these reactions live, there is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. If you've been around the channel for a while and decide you want to take your support to the next level, check those out, see if any of that would have any kind of interest for you. But regardless of that, let's jump into this video again. We're going to be checking out the Manna Charitable Foundation by the Exploring series.
The Manna Charitable Foundation. Most
Release where it
paranormal
belongs,
organizations
huh?
in the SCP universe consider themselves to be good, and that they are doing the right thing. This includes the SCP Foundation, the Global Occult
the
Coalition,
GOC,
the Serpent's Hand, the Church of the Broken God,
Chaos Theory,
and even the Sarkic
or
cults.
whatever.
From an outside
Whatever the Chaos organization, whatever, Chaos Insurgency, that's the name. I don't know why I said Chaos Theory.
point of view, though, most of these groups do some pretty objectionable things from time to time.
True.
And you certainly wouldn't...
They're all really just different opposing points of view on what to do with anomalies. Some are, you know, live and let live. Some are destroy. Some are just contain to try to keep the status quo. Some are use them and benefit from them as well as possible. You know, they're really just different organizations that just have different points of view on what to do with and how to use anomalies.
refer to the majority of them as...
I mean, that's a simplified, obviously, look and explanation. There's definitely more depth than that, but I feel like if you break it down to the core, that's really what it is they're just different points of view.
charitable in any sense. The Manna Charitable Foundation, on the other hand, have a pretty simple mission statement. Utilize any means necessary to provide assistance to those in dire need. In other words,
This is supposed to be like the Red Cross of the SCP Foundation, you know, universe. This is supposed to be, you know, the, what is it? It's not the Red Cross, I can't think of the name of it right now. I had it in my brain and then it disappeared as I was talking, but an organization that kind of goes around to different places in the world and, you know, helps out various countries and tribes and townspeople in impoverished places, giving them food, water, helping them build buildings and shelters and stuff. I don't know. I can't think of it. It's not the Red Cross. I forget what it's called. Anyway, let's just continue.
this is a group that possesses knowledge of anomalies, and even gets their hands on some, and uses them occasionally to help out those that need it. This is a mostly commendable goal, in theory,
Yeah, but
not one without complications.
the ends
as we'll
justify
see.
the means kind of situation, I bet.
The Manna Charitable Foundation is a humanitarian, non-profit organization founded by individuals with knowledge of the paranormal. Most anomalies that exist are pretty dangerous, but as I've shown in my Beneficial SCPs video, there are some that could conceivably be utilized to assist people or save lives. The MCF seeks to help out those in need due to conflict, natural disaster, environmental decay, supernatural harm, or other events of calamitous effect on human life. Their charter claims that they do these activities in accordance with the regulations set by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and abide by all lawful restrictions.
Interesting.
They will never use violence or sanction any violent interactions.
So
and
they
will
say.
use what they refer to as abnormal assets, as long as doing so does not cause greater harm than the absence of their use. They accept pretty much anyone into their organization as long as they are fully committed to the group's goals and their mode of operations. They don't have any single headquarters, as that tends to be a bad idea in the SCP universe.
True.
But rather, they have 5 main offices spread across the globe, in Canada, Spain, China, Australia, and South Africa. A group known as the International Board comprises the leaders and decision makers of the MCF, consisting of the highest-ranking members of the organization, as well as representatives of some of the MCF's most important donors and experts. The MCF is not an entirely secret organization, and they actually operate in a limited capacity within the public eye as a normal charity. Most of the members of the MCF operate...
I assume they probably do that so they don't get messed with as much, at least, by the SCP Foundation and or the GOC. But essentially so far, yeah, it just sounds like their idea is to use beneficial anomalies to benefit people, especially those that are in dire need.
In secret, though, working under hundreds of different front charities in small clusters.
They're like, you know, the FEMA of the SCP universe. That's not the original organization I was thinking of, but you know.
Known as mission work groups. These are the groups sent out across the world to utilize anomalies to aid those in need, concealed from government and military supervision, and even obscured from other mission work groups. The MCF continues to exist due to an extensive set of mysterious donors, individuals and organizations that donate funds and anomalies to the MCF for various reasons. The group's ultimate goal...
I would bet the Serpent's Hand has their hand in that.
...is to create a world that is rid of disease, famine, poverty, and armed conflict, and they are prepared to use any means necessary to achieve this goal.
I mean, just armed conflict alone, that's going to be a super difficult one. But I guess it all depends on what access, you know, you have to certain anomalies, because there could be certain reality benders out there that could potentially do that, you know? So who knows?
None of this is really surprising, and this is all just the info that the MCF would be glad to share with people interested.
Right.
So we'll have to start digging to see how their operations are going.
Exactly. What's under the surface, because this sounds like surface level stuff, and it seems like there's got to be some more darker undertones to this. I feel like, as I said earlier, it's going to be a situation where, like, yeah, they have good ideas and goals about really helping those that are in absolute dire need, but is it an ends justify the means kind of a situation where they might end up doing terrible things to achieve greater goals?
As usual, we'll be looking at a few SCP articles for some insight, which means that these are anomalies that the SCP Foundation are interested in and have more than likely taken from the MCF to contain. There are, of course, plenty of other smaller anomalies that the MCF still holds on to, so we're just looking at some of the exceptions. Typically, in the case of contained SCPs related to the MCF, they are examples of the MCF having apparently good intentions but terrible execution. This is pretty evident with SCP-1501, a series of humanoid robots constructed of copper, iron, plastic, and animal hair, with the words Manna Charitable Foundation Official Charity Delegate embossed onto their backs. Each of these robots has some method of collecting funds, such as a bucket or box, and when left free, will move to areas commonly used by charity collectors, such as street corners, office buildings, and traffic lights. Here, they will begin asking for and collecting money for a variety of charities and causes, ranging from poverty to AIDS to underperforming MCF facilities to various endangered species of birds.
Interesting.
Once funds are collected, the robots will go to transfer the money to the correct charity or fund, either by sending it through the postal system, delivering it by hand, or sending each bill individually by use of birds.
They're going old school, huh? They're tying the bills around, you know, some pigeons and sending some carrier pigeons out. Okay. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that would actually be safer than throwing it in the mail, because who knows at the post office who's actually opened those things up and taking some money out of there, you know what I mean? then those robots got to go hunt them down and, you know, rough them up and get that money back.
This is all well and good, and if things stopped there, we could commend the MCF, but of course it doesn't stop there.
Of course it doesn't.
If someone hands off money to the same robot multiple times, it will begin to follow the person and observe any financial transactions they perform.
It's going to straight up rob them. They're going to follow them to an ATM and hold them up and say, "Brock, give me your money."
It will follow them to their home, their work, and pretty much everywhere else for several weeks.
Super
until
creepy.
it has a good idea of what kind of charities the person is likely to donate to. It will then begin to ask this person for donations for those specific charities.
See, this is why you never donate to these charities, because of things like this. If you've all seen, you know, the movie Airplane, the dude's going through the airplane terminals, he's got all the various things coming up. You know, do you want to donate to this and that? That's how you handle it. That's how you handle it.
Creepy, but things get really bad when a 1501 entity comes across a wealthy person that is likely to donate to charities. This person will become the robot's sole focus, and it will send donation request letters to them constantly, alter their mail, and even disguise themselves as people familiar to the person. This will go on until either physically stopped or the authorities are alerted, in which case the robot will flee and become inert if captured. In an interview with a man targeted by a 1501 entity, he says that he came home one day, took off his coat, and saw his wife looking into a mirror, but her arms were completely still. When he asked her what's wrong, she turned to him, but it was clearly not his wife, with its face too angled and glass eyes.
What?
The entity proceeded to...
A robot tried to impersonate this guy's wife to get him to donate to the... What, bruh? Y'all need to reprogram your robots a little better, because that's not okay.
To open its mouth by more than 6 inches. Its jaw fell off, and it proceeded to ask the man over and over if he has considered the plight of the homeless. So far, around 60 of these entities have been captured, and they had been growing increasingly violent in their demands for charitable donations. Apparently, the MCF isn't happy with whoever donated these robots to them, as it makes them look pretty bad.
Yeah.
A similar case of good intentions but bad execution is SCP-1176, a mummified corpse of a human male that likely died sometime in the 10th or 11th century. Although 1176 is clinically dead, its brain still shows a constant level of electrical activity consistent with deep sleep.
Man's in a coma.
In place of all the normal bodily fluids inside of a human being...
Well, I guess technically, I think your brain waves are different if you're in a coma compared to being in a deep sleep state. So, I guess technically that would be incorrect.
Shows a constant level of electrical activity consistent with deep sleep. In place of all the normal bodily fluids inside of a human being, 1176 contains a viscous, golden-colored fluid, chemically identical to clover honey.
What?
This fluid exudes from 1176's pores, roughly 0.2 liters per hour.
Man is taking the longest nap known to Earth, and he sweats out honey? What?
Although this can rapidly increase if left unchecked. The substance was found to contain around 2,500 calories per 15 milliliters, with significant quantities of essential vitamins and nutrients.
Like, I don't know, man. Corpse honey? I'll stick with regular honey, dude. I'll take it from the bees. I don't know about taking honey from a corpse.
There are no long-term side effects from eating it, and it prevents physical sensations of hunger for 14 to 18 hours.
Can you imagine being the D class and, like, told to eat some honey, and then later on, hey, by the way, this honey came out of a dead guy's butthole or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I guess. I mean, you know, it says you're not going to be hungry for a period of time. So, I mean, I guess there's that, you know, it's a great weight loss tool, but I don't know about corpse honey, dude.
quantities of essential vitamins and nutrients.
Like it's the same thing in the Warhammer 40k universe. They have corpse starch. It's essentially what happens when you die. If you're just a regular Joe Schmo human, your body gets recycled into food that gets sent to the front lines for people to eat. You turn into corpse starch, which honestly actually sounds kind of worse than this, but yeah, I don't know. I'm good.
Liters, with significant quantities of essential vitamins and nutrients. There are no long-term side effects from eating it, and it prevents physical sensations of hunger for 14 to 18 hours. Unfortunately, it's only edible in this way by people of blood type AB positive, and anyone else that consumes more than 0.5 milliliters of the substance will experience a severe allergic reaction a few hours later.
Rip.
In 98.7% of tests with incompatible subjects, the reaction ended with death, and the symptoms.
Oh, okay. So if you're not of a certain blood type and you eat this honey, you will just pretty much straight up die.
Symptoms were consistent with an individual receiving an incompatible blood transfusion.
Interesting. So if you happen to be the people, of the proper blood type, hey man, if you want to do some intermittent fasting, this honey is the trick for you, dude. You take some of this honey and, you got, what would it say, like 18 hours of not being hungry? I mean, there you go. But if you're not, death.
The Foundation tracked SCP-1176 down by tracing the source of shipments of honey that had been distributed to famine-stricken regions of Ethiopia, which had resulted in thousands of deaths.
Right. I mean, wouldn't you think, I don't know. I was going to say, wouldn't you think you would want to find that kind of stuff out before you just mass ship it? Because again, like I said, greater good kind of situation. They're trying to there's poor people in Ethiopia that are starving. Let's send them this honey that we can just, that just is infinitely created by this corpse. It can't have any kind of negative side effects. I mean, it's created by some dead guy who's apparently still on REM sleep because, corpses just pump out honey. That's fine.
The mummy was in a sarcophagus
what could go wrong?
In an MCF facility with a spigot installed into the sarcophagus to extract the fluid. Testing was done by the SCP Foundation afterwards to see how much of the fluid the mummy could potentially produce, for some reason, reaching an upper limit of 55 liters per hour.
Damn.
After 10 hours, a sudden spike in brain activity was detected, and 1176 became conscious, opening its eyelids and flailing wildly. It engaged in distressed vocalizations and attempted to crawl across the test chamber. Staff personnel attempted to restrain the entity, resulting in one of its hands being severed at the wrist. Sedation attempts proved unsuccessful, so they put it back in the sarcophagus and set the lid on top. The entity continued to vocalize and strike the inside of the sarcophagus for around 3 hours before returning to its previous state.
Yikes, brother.
This really seems like a good candidate for euthanization, as we can barely call this one beneficial.
Right.
The MCF...
I mean, I guess as long as you give it to the right blood type, it could be, beneficial. But otherwise, yeah.
Doesn't always make things worse, though, as shown with SCP-1135, an isolated village in India. The village contains over 100 houses, several places of business, and a Hindu temple, all of which are larger and built with far more technologically advanced materials than other villages in the region. They also all include running hot and cold water, electricity, and plumbing systems. The roads in the village, as well as for 2 kilometers around the village, are fully paved with asphalt concrete. An investigation revealed that all the building materials and permanent fixtures contained strands of organic fiber running through them, which extend up to 3 meters below the ground and connect to one another, forming an organic network. The fibers grow, repair themselves, and absorb nutrients from the soil, making 1135 a single living organism similar to a fungus.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
New buildings are occasionally spontaneously created by 1135, and any damaged structures or fixtures are quickly repaired.
Interesting. So they have essentially some kind of living organism that creates shelter for people and just like builds buildings, and if anything gets destroyed, broken, or whatever, it'll repair them automatically.
Basically growing out of the ground. The rate and capacity for growth and repair of 1135 is dependent on how much sustenance it receives. It absorbs water and nutrients from the soil, but also consumes any waste left within the boundaries of the village, causing it to deteriorate and decompose rapidly, leaving behind no remains. It will not perform this process on any living organic tissue or objects being actively used in the village, and if it goes too long without being fed, it will only take down some buildings to absorb the nutrients. However, if a human or animal causes substantial or repetitive damage to 1135 buildings, it will lash out in the form of constructing elaborate traps to ward off, injure, or kill
defending
attackers.
Itself.
These range from pitfalls to caltrops to complicated traps that would indicate a
straight
higher
up traps.
Intelligence.
Like just straight up traps, doing pitfalls. Like, yeah, you're there. Okay, I mean, it's defending itself. You know what I mean? You come home drunk one night and you start messing up the building, throwing stuff around. Next morning you wake up and you just, walk out in your living room, fall into a pip trap and die. You know what I mean? I guess.
Other than this, though, 1135 was completely peaceful, and the villagers seemed to enjoy living there until the Foundation stumbled upon it.
Rip.
The residents said that an organization named the Manna Charitable Foundation had orchestrated the process, referring to it as a sustainable housing development scheme.
I mean, it sounds like it.
The SCP Foundation kicked everyone out, gave them amnestics, and fenced off the village.
It doesn't really sound like there's much of a downside to it. I mean, it's some kind of plant growth that's able to construct buildings for them. So, I mean, as long as they give it sustenance, it'll keep creating new buildings for them. I wonder if there's some kind of way they could get it to create specific buildings. Like, hey, we need a storage facility for grain or rice or whatever kind of produce they might be farming, and could it then create that? Is there some kind of way to communicate with it to create specific things? But I mean, so far from this story, it sounds like it is actually beneficial and not really harmful unless you attack it.
Foundation kicked everyone out, gave them amnestics, and fenced off.
I feel like there's got to be something more to it, though. There's got to be something bad
from a nearby facility into it. One of the most amusing experiments that the MCF attempted, again with less than successful results, was SCP-514. 514 is a flock of homing pigeons that project a zone around them, roughly about 500 meters in radius, that nullifies all weapons and thoughts of aggression. Every known type of weapon that enters this zone will be rendered inoperable.
That in and of itself is an extremely powerful weapon. Okay? Like, you create a weapon that disables any and all weapons, and not only that, removes any kind of want to, or removes any kind of aggression or want to fight. Like, talk about subduing your enemy without having to take a shot,
Usually permanently if left inside of it for too long. Firearms will jam or misfire, explosives are rendered inert, and melee weapons decay into dust. Humans and animals that enter this zone will suddenly feel very calm and content, regardless of previous emotions, and will be unable to carry out a violent action. 514 came to the Foundation's attention when numerous reports of weapons stockpiles being destroyed in Africa started cropping up. This was originally written off as due to poor maintenance on the weapons, but there were reports of seeing a flock of homing pigeons at the same places, not a common sight in Africa. While investigating, the SCP Foundation bumped into a team from the MCF, who were also tracking the birds, as they had been the ones who released them in Africa.
Right.
Their plan was to end all conflict in Africa, although they had no way to control the birds' movements, and the effects of the zone were only temporary for humans.
I mean, you would think they'd be able to train them in certain ways, right? Because again, like, you can train carrier pigeons to go to different places. So you'd think they would be able to train pigeons to fly in certain areas and just exist in those zones. But, you know, who knows?
This meant that they would simply resume hostilities with what weapons they still had afterwards.
Right afterwards.
And it left affected areas defenseless when invaded by their unaffected neighbors.
Right, exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's like, it's got to be a situation where, like, yeah, it stops fighting in a certain area, but then those people's, their weapons disappear. They then don't have a way to defend themselves, so they just get overtaken by another aggressor. So all you're really doing is causing, you know, a different kind of cycle of violence. You're taking away a certain group of people's ability to defend themselves from other hostile aggressors.
The SCP Foundation did manage to find a way to control the birds' movement, but the MCF team challenged them for custody, as they had been their possession. Since both groups were under the effects of 514 at the time, they decided...
That's what my response would have been if I had been, like, one of the leaders of the SCP. I'd be like, bitch, fuck you. Look what you just did. You didn't know how to use these things properly. We learned how to use them right. You know? You're not getting these back.
...to settle the matter through a single round of rock, paper, scissors. The SCP Foundation won, and the MCF team fled the area. In their testing, they found that prolonged exposure will eventually lead to any weapon being reduced to dust, and the effect can somehow discern if any item will be used for violent intent or not.
I wonder how it would affect other SCP anomalies, you know? So, like, if there's some... like 682, for example. That might be a bad example, actually, because of how adaptive it is, but it's an aggressive anomaly. You know, it's an aggressive SCP, doesn't like people, wants to kill them. If you could put these birds around it, would it be able to calm it down? So if it has, like, a fit of rage, take one of these birds out, put it around it, get it to calm down, so you can, you know, reinforce its containment, or... you know, the old man that goes around and attacks people and drags them into his own dominion. That pops out, you have, like, you know, these birds on hand to calm them down, stuff like that. I wonder how it would affect. That's, to me, what I would think, you know, would be a really good use for them, is to help calm down other aggressive SCPs to help keep them contained. I would think 682 would probably eventually adapt to it, though, and overcome it, and it would eventually not have any kind of effect on them,
thus neutralizing it accordingly. Trust, and the effect can somehow discern if any item will be used for violent intent or not, thus neutralizing it accordingly.
Interesting.
The reason that the birds still aren't contained, just controlled, is because any personnel actually sent to properly contain them refuses to complete the mission.
Right, they lose interest in doing it, yeah.
Any long-range devices or drones that are attempted to be used are rendered inoperable.
Inert, yeah, because it sees it. The pigeon would see it as an aggressive weapon trying to attack it.
MTF Lambda 4 bird watchers are assigned to monitor the flock and use the means at their disposal to keep it away from population centers. All members of the bird watchers are required to be proficient in various non-violent competitive activities, including sports, board games, card games, trivia, riddles, and of course, rock, paper, scissors. It was a good anomaly, but the MCF had a bit too lofty of a goal in mind for that one.
Yeah, and not a,
like I said, we're mostly
not a thought-out plan on how to utilize it properly. I mean, good idea, poor execution kind of a situation.
Looking at anomalies that the MCF has used and failed with, either for bad execution or the SCP Foundation coming in to put a stop to it. There's certainly plenty more anomalies that the MCF are using that we don't know about. Small, minor things that allow them to help people to a greater degree than a mundane charity could. The MCF, for all intents and purposes, seemed to be a group of lofty idealists that discovered a world filled with anomalies and decided that some of them could be used for good rather than being locked away. Whether or not that's actually what they are and whether or not they're right is a matter for debate.
True. Very true. Quote. Alrighty. Our final ambition is the creation of a world where our activities are no longer necessary nor required. That is, a world rid of disease, famine, poverty, and armed conflict. We at the Manna Charitable Foundation ultimately strive towards a world united in health, plenty, prosperity, and peace, and will use whatever resources are made available to us to achieve this goal, no matter how distant in time it may seem. I mean, lofty goals, man. Lofty goals. I think it's, you know, poor execution is the best way to probably describe it. You know, good ideas, good thought, good processing, but poor execution on how to go through things. I feel like this organization would be a prime target for the Chaos Insurgency to jack a lot of their stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? Like just think of the pigeons alone. Like, if the Chaos Insurgency could take those pigeons and find a way to make it so that it only affects certain groups of people, or if they could find a way so that it doesn't affect them, they could essentially send those pigeons to any kind of SCP Foundation facility and raid it willy-nilly without having to, you know, shoot anything at all. They could take whatever out of there that they would want. But even just in general, like a group of seemingly pacifist, I don't know if they're pacifist, but they seem to be that way. They seem to not want to fight or do, you know, any kind of harm in using their SCP, you know, anomalies. But it seems like an organization like that would be a prime target for the Chaos Insurgency, who, you know, if the Manna Charitable Foundation had any kind of anomalies that the Chaos Insurgency would be interested in, they would just go in and take it. And it seems like, I don't know, who knows, again, what kind of, you know, anomalies they have, what kind of SCPs they have. Maybe they have SCPs that could defend them against such actions, but it would seem like they would be pretty easy targets for them to do that. But I mean, the idea of the honey, like, again, I feel like that's a situation where, like, wouldn't you want to experiment further on that? Because it's literally honey that is coming out of a basically dead man. Like, that's not normal. Do some experimentation and see what it's about before you just ship honey off to a third world country of starving people. Like, send them actual food first and then try this out and see if it's not going to have any kind of harmful side effects. Because who knows what it could do, man. In the SCP universe, that could turn people into God knows what kind of mutated creatures that could end up destroying the world. You could end up creating some kind of K-class scenario of some sort that you don't even know of. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good ideas, good cause. You know, they're trying to solve the problems of the world and create peace, but poor execution in some of the ways they're doing it. But yeah, it would be interesting to see some more tales about the Manna Charitable Foundation and how they fit in and some of the stuff they do. But yeah, that was the Exploring series, the Manna Charitable Foundation. Links will be down below in the description to the original video, that my commentary and reaction, and to the Exploring series channel. Please do me a favor, if you enjoy these videos, go over there and give it a like. And if you enjoy the Exploring series content and you're not already subscribed to them, please do me a favor, hit that sub button on his channel. He definitely deserves it. He makes a lot of wonderful content for the SCP universe as well as others. If you'd like to join us when we do these reactions live, there is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. Been around the channel for a while, decide you want to take your support to the next level, just check those out, see if they would have any interest for you. Early access videos, priority in any kind of reaction requests you might have for me to do, etc., etc. So check it out if you'd like to. But regardless of all that, thank you guys for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate you taking the time to do so. If you did enjoy the video, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and the channel grow. And yeah, I greatly appreciate your time, and thank you very much for watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day. See you on the next one.